Good evening, everyone. So, we are back with a new session in the series Getting Started with Web Development, a complete roadmap from zero to infinity. So, guys, get ready to move forward with your web development journey with Datacode. Today's session will be first step toward JavaScript. Our goal is to guide you on how to get started with the JavaScript. Those who all were in our last session might be aware of this learning journey, and we welcome the new joiners to be the part of it. Don't worry about the prerequisites. Just stay connected with us throughout the session and you will really find it interesting and knowledgeable. So, before starting with the session, I would like to introduce you to the Datacode community. Datacode is a beginners community which provides a world-class learning resources to anyone, anywhere. We started back in November 2018 and today we are a community of over 30k members from across the globe. Being such a big community, we aim to provide the best learning content and the right mentorship. Whether it's a student or a professional, anyone can join the Datacode community to learn whatever they want and can connect with the mentors to get a proper mentorship. So now we are moving forward to describe today's speaker, Mr. Pratyaksh Saxena. He is SDE at Gamezop and a consultant at ShootPy. He is very much interested in full stack development and hence who can better guide us. His work so far in IT industry is commendable and worth learning from. So please help me in welcoming an outstanding developer and a tech speaker, Mr. Pratyaksh Saxena. In this
Thank you
session,
for the introduction.
thank you, sir. In this session, you will learn about how to get started with JavaScript. We all having a full hands-on session on the JavaScript, which will help you to get some fundamental knowledge of the JavaScript. So our today's speaker will tell you about all the practices you should follow and many other topics and the tips. It will be a great sessions for the beginners who really have a keen interest in web development. Also, we have many other upcoming sessions in the queue for the web development. So be with us throughout this wonderful journey and learn the maximum you can. So it's the time to begin. Let's begin. Happy learning.
Hello everyone. So very much excited for this session. Let's start it. Uh, in chat, can you let me know when my screen is visible? Okay, great. So this session will be about JavaScript. So according to my knowledge, in the last session, you all understood what is HTML and what is CSS. And the next step is JavaScript. So JavaScript is nothing but it's a scripting language that is used to modify your HTML and CSS. It's a very powerful and yet very simple to learn language with the help of which you can make your web page dynamics. So why JavaScript? So before these dynamic web page, we had only very static web pages. We had just a set of information like you see blog, right? Nowadays you have feature to like blog, share blog and everything. Those features were also not there before. It was just a plain text and you can just see that and there's nothing you can interact it with. Then JavaScript came into the picture, and what JavaScript helped is to make these pages dynamic. Everything you see on page depends on what action you do now. So and not only text, the power of JavaScript is that you can you can uh, you can pull the JavaScript out of the web browser. So before a decade back, what used to happen was the JavaScript could only run on a web browsers. So let's say we have Chrome. If you want to use JavaScript, all you can do is you can go on a web browser and there only you can access JavaScript. Then later we were introduced to something called Node. And what Node.js is? Node.js is an engine. What it does is it's a Chrome V8 engine. And what it does is it makes it's run JavaScript independent of HTML and CSS. So now JavaScript itself became very powerful. Now it cannot not only be used for HTML and CSS but other computation also. And then later on we moved with JavaScript into backend also. And now wherever you go, you can find JavaScript, from mobile app development to web development to backend. Now, what is ECMAScript? So JavaScript follow a set of rules which is defined in ECMAScript. It's a scripting, what we say, like we have ASCII rule. It's a scripting rule which JavaScript follows. I'll talk about a little bit more about ECMAScript. That is kind of important in the later session. Now, instead of having a PPT session, what I want is it to be a very interactive and code along session. So I'll slowly cover different topics, and you can code along. And if you face any issue, just let me know in the comment section, and I'll answer those questions for you. So let's start with creating a JavaScript file. Okay. So here I have a normal JavaScript file, and I'll start with introducing to you what is variables. Okay, let's start with variables first. So what variables are? Whenever what we are doing in programming, actually, we are playing with the information, we are playing with data. Now, this data needs to be stored somewhere and should be stored in such a way that you can refer to it again and again. So these your data, it can be a number, it can be your name, it can be anything, needs to be stored in a value which we call variables. So let's start with variables. Now let's say my name is Pratyaksh. So what this mean is, and so now you'll see what I have written. It's let, then name, then is equals to, then there's a quotation, my name, then quotation end. So this let is a keyword which let JavaScript compiler know that it's a variable. Means the word following it will be the name of my variable. So now whenever I want to refer to this value, which is now stored in name, uh, so I can just anywhere write. Okay, font size is little less visible. Okay, is it better now? Okay, I'll start again. No problem. Okay, so this let is the keyword which let you know that it's a variable, and then this is the variable name. Now whenever I want to refer this particular thing, it will be referred as name. This is equals to is assigning. I am assigning this value to variable name. Okay, then what we have is we have a thing called console.log, and in which I can pass this variable name. So what is this? In this, you can see it's a normal print statement like thing. Like we have cout in C++ or println in Python, we have console.log in name. So this is my terminal, and anything I console log, and which is in this parenthesis will be printed here. So now if I just run this, so for running this, I told you about Node, right? Node is something that help us to run JavaScript beyond web browser also. So now I'll write Node, and then if I write index.js, it will run it log console.log, it logged name, which is this. Okay, now in variables also we have three types in JavaScript. One is let, another is var, and the third is const. I'll cover each one of them, and first I'll tell the basic difference between const and variable. Let and var can be kept into one category, and const is another category. So let and var are mutable values. What does mutable mean? It means in my program, whenever I want, I can change the value of these variables. So like here, I have let name Pratyaksh, I logged it. Then I can say, okay, this value name now is Saxena. Then console.log name again. Now if I run it, yeah, I didn't save it, sorry. So now it says Pratyaksh, then Saxena. So now you can see I'm using the variable name only, but it reassigned the value to this variable name. From Pratyaksh, it changed to Saxena. So this is mutable. Similarly, if I use var over here, same thing will happen because it is also mutable value. But now let's say I change it to const. Const is immutable. What does immutable means? It means that once the value is defined during the declaration. So once I have given the value Pratyaksh over here, no matter what, I can't change the value. So if I run it again, we'll run into an error. What is this error? It says assignment to constant variable. So it's saying that you are you are reassigning a value to a constant variable. And if I remove this, then the issue will be gone because now I'm not rewriting the value again. Oh, let me save it. Sorry. The error is gone and we can't rewrite it. Now comes the interesting thing. What is different between let and var? So ECMAScript comes with the set of rules not every year, but frequently. So uh, we have ECMAScript 1, ECMAScript 2, ECMAScript 3. These are the version of ECMAScript, that is ES1, ES2, ES3, and the latest one is ES11. But ES5 to ES6, the transaction when we move from ES5 to ES6 is most important one and quite interesting one because we saw a huge change in JavaScript. Very many new features came in which made JavaScript very popular. Before ES5, the let function wasn't there. The let keyword wasn't there. There was only var and const. So var had a issue. So before moving to that, I'll have to explain you what is scope. So each and every variable has a scope. Let's say this is a block of code and I have defined some variable xyz over here. Now, if this x and yz is only accessible in in this blocks, then we can say that it has a block scope. Means it cannot be accessed outside the scope. But even if it is defined as this scope and we can use it outside this scope again, this is called global scope, which means that now the variable has a global scope. It can be used anywhere in that particular body. So the issue came was, uh, let's say I define a var variable xy and let's name it. Uh, what I do is if true, and I say var xy is equals to 10. Okay. So as a programmer, there will be a lot of time when I declare the variables on the go, and I want these variables to be block scope. I don't want this xy to have a scope outside this, but var doesn't has that. So if I console.log it over here, even though it is outside this block, I can use this. See it log 10. So this is something that pissed off programmers quite often because they use a temporary variable inside a block and now they try to declare another temporary variable outside this block. The conflict occurs that you have already defined this variable. So that very much pissed off programmer. But in ES6, JavaScript came with something called let. Now let has a block scope. Means once I have defined this let inside this block, I cannot go and use it outside this block. So now if I try to run this, see it gave an error. XY is not defined because XY has scope of this block only. Hope this is clear. Let me know if something is unclear about this. Okay, then we'll move forward. Just let me know in chat section whenever you feel something is off or bounce. Then just let me know. Okay, why you are saying why name is cross through? So, name is actually not something that you should actually use as what I say a variable name. So key variable names itself has a set of rules. You can't name anything as variable. If I try to name it const, it will show an error that const is a keyword. I cannot use a keyword as a variable. Similarly, name is something that has been deprecated now, and JavaScript has said that name is something that you cannot use as what we say variable name anymore, but it is deprecated, not completely removed. So it's not an error, it's just a warning that it's deprecated. Here this is deprecated. In the future you may face some error if JavaScript plans to completely remove it. So change it. So if I change it to name one, and here also name one, you will see that strike through is gone. So reason of that strike through was that it was deprecated. Hope that is clear. Okay, so once again explanation. Okay, sure, why not? So, uh, Vedant, can you let me know exactly what part is unclear? Is the part where I told you about difference between let and difference between const and let var is clear, or is the difference between let and var itself not clear? Let variable. Okay, okay. So I'll once again explain. Just remove all of this. Uh, let's do one thing. Let's say let I am let go through I am let. ठीक? This is our let variable. Then let's say uh, if true. Why I'm using this if true? Hope you know what conditional statement is. So conditional statement is if this particular part of block will execute only if a condition, let's say a is greater than b is one condition. If a is one variable, b is another variable, is true, then only this block will run. But for the example, sake of example, I am putting true here so that this condition always get true and it always gets inside this block for just for the sake of this explanation. Okay, so let's say we have let and I say console.log I am let, and then console.log I am let. Okay, so let's run this. So now you see this let variable, since it is defined outside a block, it is defined outside the block. Now this entire thing, this entire program is the block for this let. So this let uh, is can be accessed anywhere in this. But if I define a let over here, I am local let. Let's say I name it I am local let, and then I'll local, and let's console.log it over here. Now this local let since it is defined inside this block. Okay, since it is defined inside this block, it has access, it can be accessed only inside this block. From this line number 2 where this curly bracket start to the line number 6 where this curly bracket ends. Okay, now if I try to use this let, now right now if I'll run it, it will work, no problem, it's local, it's run. But now if I try to place it over here and say console.log I am local let, it will throw an error because it says I am local let is not defined. Why it is not defined? Because we defined it inside this block, and now over here we don't have access to this local let. But let's say now I change it to var and var. Okay, so now this is var. Okay, now if I try to run this one, uh, local var and over. Now if I try to run this, oh shit. Okay, bad. Not all of the sudden the scenario changes. It says you have access to local var and it console.log it, even though it is defined inside this block. So this is the difference between var and let. If a var is defined inside a block, then also it has global scope. A var, no matter where it is defined, it has the global scope. But if a let is defined out inside a block, it has local scope, and if it's defined outside any block, it has global scope. Hope it is clear now. Clear now. Okay. Now let's start with data types. Okay. So these were the variables. Now in variables x, y, z, we can store different things. I told you, right? I can store my name over here. So this is called string. Whenever something you see, something is wrapped in double quote or even in single quotes, or in fact in uh, back tilt. This is back tilt. It's a string. Okay. All this is a string. All these are string. So there are different data types. String is one of them. Now another there with basically there are three fundamental what we say data types in JavaScript. There are 6, 7, but the fundamentals that from which everything is derived is one string. Another word is number. So number is anything, anything. Let's say 12.3. It's a number, or you say number is equals to 12. It can be a whole number also. In fact, it can be a exponential number also. I can say 12 uh, 21. It is also a number. It accepts it. If I write 10, it's saying it's wrong, but when I give the power, it says okay, 21. It is also a number. So these are numbers. The third is Boolean. So right now you saw that I used true. So like true, we have false, and these true and false are Boolean. So let bool is equals to true is one, and let sorry not let bool is equals to false. It's another. So these are the three basic data types: string, number, and Boolean. Okay. And JavaScript itself is quite smart, and it what it does is it does internal type conversion. So let's say if I try to add uh, I try to print num, and let's say I define a let num1 also. Okay, I have two now. If I try to add num plus num1, it should give an expected answer 12 plus 12.23 12.3, which is 24.3. Should give the uh, obvious answer, but no. So what happened over here was console.log. What it does is it converts everything into a string. Okay, as I told, JavaScript is smart. It converts everything into a string. So what it did was wait a minute. Okay, sorry, my bad. I redefined number over here. Wait a minute. No, shouldn't be 12.1. So what JavaScript will do is it will do 12 plus 12.23. So it gives 24.3. But now let's say I replace it with XYZ. So now to us human, it doesn't make sense adding what we say number to a name. It doesn't make sense. But JavaScript will make sense out of it. It will say, okay, you gave me a number and you gave me a string. So what it did was it converted this number into a string itself internally. It converted this number into a string and then appended. Appended means joined xyz, that is Pratyaksh, into it. Okay, so this is how JavaScript do internal type conversion. We say type conversion or type casting. This is implicit. Now we can do explicit also, where we ourselves, user ourselves, say that you need to change the data type over here before performing. So let's say I have let str num, let string num is equals to 12. Now I have saved 12 in a string, and instead of xyz, I give str num. If I print it, it gave the same result. Because according to it, it's a string. It doesn't know what is inside, but it knows it's a string and it's a number. So I'll convert the number into a string and I'll concatenate it. Hope that is clear. Then, uh, but as a user, you'll see that many times the data you get is in string form. 99% of the time, the data you will get from APIs form APIs will be string, and maybe you get a number that is in string form, and now you want to add a number to this number 12, but since it's a string, JavaScript is giving 12 this output. So now I can explicitly tell JavaScript that the string which you have, it has a int. It's a int. So what I did over here is I said this is a parse int. It's a function. It says that whatever you have in this bracket is a string, but this string contains a number. Now you will convert this number into an integer and then then perform the operation. So now if I run it, it converted it into integer and it added it in, and now we got 12.3 instead of this 24.3 instead of this 12.312. Okay, there's a way where you can so it's not always that you know what data type you are getting. If you don't know what data type you have, you can always do type of, and you can pass the variable name. So JavaScript will tell you that what is the type of this variable. So it told you that xyz is a string. Similarly, str now is a string. But now if I convert it into integer, it's a number now. It's not a string anymore, it's a number because I force JavaScript to convert into a number or an integer. Varun asks, sir, will it automatically concatenate both string? Yeah. So what this plus is, if I do 12 plus 12, it will do addition because it has two numbers. But if I have two string, it will do concatenation. Now here it will perform concatenation because it's not a number. You cannot perform a mathematical operation over here. So it will just concatenate these two strings. So it will automatically do that. Okay. Now moving on. Hope this part is clear about types and type conversion. There are different types. So there's a way where you can convert, let's say 12. I can explicitly say convert into a string, and it will convert into a string. Okay. So there's your type conversion. Now let's move on to what we call functions. So right now I've told you that pass int is a function. Now what is this function? So uh, as a programmer, you will write tens of thousands of line in your life. in your, not even in life, in a month you'll write tens of thousands of lines, and in those tens of thousands lines you will find that hundreds of lines are something that are being repeated again and again. So let's say I write a program to add two number. Just for example, for for now, just take, I have a let a is equals to 10, and let b is equals to 10, and console.log a plus b. Now it's a very simple for this. You can write these three lines again and again, but consider you have something more complex over here, something like extracting data from your data set, or you are performing some complex math operation or something, and you don't want to perform this again and again. You don't want to write these three lines or tens of lines again and again. Now what this programming language gives you is that you can, like we gave a name to this string so that we can use it again and again anywhere, and refer it as xyz. Similarly, we can do something for function for this set of lines also. So these set of lines can be clubbed together in a function, and it's a syntax. I'll give you the syntax, and let's say its function is add, and then these lines can go over there. Okay, parse int xyz. I'll show you what happened when we do that. It gives nan. So what is nan? Nan is basically I do not remember the full form. We refer it nan and again. We can search anytime what is nan. Full form of nan. Nan. What was the full form? Ah, yeah, not a number. So it gave not a number, because you were trying to give a string to it, and it says it's not a number. You can't convert it. Thank you, Datacode, for telling not a number. I googled that. Okay. Uh, so moving forward, we were on function. So now this function add, now this now whenever I need to perform these three lines, I can go anywhere in my program and I can just say add, and I'll do this thing. So this is the function definition. I defined a function. This function keyword tells you that you are going to define a function whose name will be add, and this block is what it will implement whenever it is called. And this is how you call it. So notice the difference. The function keyword is gone. Now this is calling, this is defining, and this is calling. Now if I run it, it gave me 20. No matter now, if I want to do it again, I can just do it again. Add. It gave 20. So I can do this n number of times, and it will save my time. So imagine if you have thousands of line and you want to implement it again and again. This, and now instead of thousands of line, you just need to have these just one line. Now what now let's talk about this parenthesis a little bit. So it's not every time that you are going to add two values, and every time the value is 10, or every time the value is of b is also 10. There's a case where your user will give the value, and at that very moment the value you get is the value you need are the values you need to add. So what JavaScript do is, in this function, you can say I'll get a variable called a, and I'll get a variable called b. Now whenever I call this function add, see, it says add accepts two things. One is a, that is of any data type, because I haven't defined that it will get an integer or string or anything. It can get a, it can get in anything in the variable a, and it can get anything in the variable b. This void is something which I'll come later on to. So now if I pass 10 comma 12 from here, you'll see it with 22. Next time I decide, okay, the user gives 45 and 15. Now you get 22 and 60. Is it possible to declare A and B inside parentheses? Ferran. Okay, you depict. Okay, Ferran, I hope I answered that. If you can define A and B inside the parentheses. So this is the parenthesis, and now this was the definition. Sorry, these now this A and B are called parameters. Anything you pass inside these parentheses are called parameter. There can be n number of parameters. See, it says parameter A of type any. Now let's talk about what was this void thing. It was showing this void thing, right? So which extension you use to correct info? Okay, so I use this uh, extension called Prettier. It does the auto formatting of your text, like rearranging and adding the semicolons and everything. It does that work. So this is the Prettier. Okay, it's quite good. You can use it. Everyone use this. Okay, now let's talk about void. So in some case, as the user, as the programmer, you don't want your function to have the functionality to print the data. You want that your function does the computation part and then give the result back to you. Now, if I'm standing at this line at 12 plus 12, I don't know what is the result I'll get. I have no idea. I just call the function and the function itself prints the answer. But let's say now I want to use this value later on, so I want to hold this value. No main function. No. JavaScript. This is JavaScript. It doesn't require main function like Java or C++. It's a scripting language, so it doesn't require like in Python. You don't have a main function, right? It's a scripting. Similarly, JavaScript is a scripting language. It doesn't require a main function. It starts from the very first line and it goes down straight to the down. It just starts from the very first line. It doesn't look for main function to start with. Okay. So yeah, where was I? I don't. Yeah. So I want to hold that value. Whatever the function has computed, I want to hold that value. You mean we don't need boilerplate code? So JavaScript doesn't. So in C++, you are very much similar to something like hash include and then your function main start, right? Your function main start and shit, sorry, void main. This is something you have in C++. All this is not there in JavaScript. There is no boilerplate like this. It's just simple. You just start declare your variable, declare your function, and you just start coding. This is the beauty of JavaScript. No boilerplate, nothing needed. And we are not learning C++, not an issue. Okay. So I need to hold that value. I need to hold that value. So I can say let added sum is equal. Let sum is equals to add 10 and 12. Right now, if I just console.log sum, it says undefined. Why it gave undefined was the sum I have defined. Now you remember this add was returning. This add has something here void. So right now this function add is handing me out nothing. It's giving me nothing. It's void. That's why it's saying that sum is undefined. Sum doesn't have anything to show to you. But now instead of logging a plus b here, I just say uh, return a plus b. Okay, so now it says that function add takes a value in A, takes a value in B, and it returns a value. It returns a value any. Why it's saying any? Because it doesn't. The function itself doesn't know that what it's going to get. It doesn't know if it is going to get a string or if it is going to get a integer or anything. So that's why it's any over here. Now if I do and now if I run it, I got 22 in sum. How? Because now when the function ended, I saw the statement return. My function returned this value to the starting point of this to the function call. And since I have this is equals to, so internally now this becomes to let uh, sum is equals to uh, a plus b. Internally this happened. This not just a plus b. This entire function came over here and the value which I got was saved into sum. Hope this is clear. Okay, so this is function. Now this is how is it possible to create animation content through JavaScript. This is kind of vague. You can actually not create it, but what we do is for animation we can say that if using css I create a block, say a css block of red color, and now css has a property called transform which has rotate in it. So transform rotate 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree, 4 degree, 5 degree, that thing. uh, you can call it an animation. You are animating your body. Now you want to dynamically change this rotation degree. In starting you have rotate 0 degree, then 1 degree, then 2 degree. Now this 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree can be dynamically controlled by JavaScript. So JavaScript will change the degree and you will see animation on your screen. If you want, I'll show you the animation part when I move on the part where I integrate JS and HTML, CSS all together. Right now, it's just basic of JavaScript, what is function and basic stuff you need to get started. Okay, so the function we define this way is something which was given in ES5 till ES5. In ES6, we got a new way of creating function which we call arrow functions. So it is very similar to what we have seen in what we do in normal variable. Instead of writing function, we just say let add is equals to then this function. Now this is the function name. Function name came over here. No, Tanish, jQuery I won't be covering today. jQuery is actually a framework, and I am focusing on vanilla CSS. So I'll teach you document docker, and jQuery is kind of old framework. Now JavaScript has everything to perform what jQuery offered. So you don't really need jQuery anymore. You can do all that stuff with vanilla JS also now. Okay, so this function name came over here. Then your parenthesis comes after equal to. Now now your body comes. This is the arrow function. We call it arrow function. It came into picture in ES6, and it's a newer way of defining functions. Nothing else is different. I can just give a comma b over here and do same thing. Return a plus b over here. This is just another syntax of writing it. Okay, but it is it's very popular among JavaScript programmers. It cause it makes defining function at the very spot. Let's say inside a function I want to define a function, very easy. So let's say inside a function I want to define a function. I can just do this. Earlier I had to define a function somewhere else. Function over here, function in inb like this. and then only I can use it over here. But now I can, I don't need that. I can just do it over here like this. Yes. Arrow function is little tricky. It gets simpler in starting. People hate it. That why are we even using arrow function? It takes time to get used to. But when you understand that, it is the one of the best thing that ES6 has to offer. Okay. Now let's take so these function. I defined a function add, right? But what JavaScript has to offer is it has a lot of predefined function. Uh, what a predefined function? So I use toString, right? Then I use parseInt also. So these are function itself. You see, it's a function. It's looking very similar to what I did earlier with add, right? Like I like this. It's looking very similar, right? Now, where's this definition of function? So these definition JavaScript has already provided, and you can just Google it. JavaScript uh, predefined function. This predefined functions, and here you can find a lot of predefined function by which JavaScript has to offer. So these are different functions that you can use on number. These are different functions that you can use on Boolean. These are different functions that you can use on string, and these are different functions that you can use on array. So now, what is array? Let's start with array. Yeah. Now, let's say I have a list of data, uh, and I need to store it somehow. So one way is I can say let a1 is equals to one value. I'm trying to save a list. Then I can say let a2 is equals to something. Then let a3 is equals to something. You see where I'm going. This is very difficult to name a new variable every time I want to create a list. So we have something called array in JavaScript. So array is a list of variables, list of values, list of values. Let arr is equals to one, two, three, like this. It's a list of values, and uh, so if you are similar with C++, you would know something called array from before. But you will know that it's a homogeneous. It can only have elements of same type. But JavaScript allows you to have different, data types itself. Inside of list, I can have a element of string. I can have a element of number. I can have a element of what I say, Boolean also. And then I can console.log arr. It will return you a list of elements. So now my one variable can be used to address entire list. Instead of declaring three separate variables, I just made a array and I can access all those using one element. Now, how do I access one particular element in a list? Let's say I want to access two over here, or let's say I want to access three over here. So array has something called index. Each element has an index starting from 0 to n minus 1, where n is the length of your list. So if I want to address this one, it has an index 0, and with the help of this index 0, I can access this element directly. Similarly, 2 has index 1 and 3 has index 2. So it starts from 0 and it goes up to n minus 1. So if I just do this ARR and in a square bracket, I pass the index of that element. Let's say I want to have 3 printed. So index of 3 is 0, 1, 2. I can just write ARR 2. And now I'll get 3 as output. Similarly, I can write 1, I can write 0. But if I try to write 3, which is not there, like I have 0, I have 1, if I have 2. And now if I try to run it, it says undefined because in this array, I have elements only up to 2 and 3 doesn't exist. So it says undefined, you don't have anything there. Okay, so this was array, and array has a very important function, uh, ARR, which is map. Uh, Map is something when you move to React, Angular, or anything, or Vue, is something which you will use again and again. So what map is? Map is a, you use it to iterate through. It's a predefined function. You can find any definition anytime over here. Map creates a new array with the result of calling provided function. This is quite complex. I'll just show you the example. So I say ARR map, and now let's say what this map takes. This map takes a callback function, and this callback function has a value, has an index, and then it returns any array. It returns any array. The main thing is returns any array. So first it takes a callback function. Let's make a callback function. Callback function is a function that is used inside a function. Hope that is clear. The map is a function, and I am going to use a function inside. I'm going to call a function inside it, and this has two value. It gives us value and it gives us index. Now let's console.log it and see what happens. I forgot to tell this. In console.log, this comma is separator, so it will print a value, then comma, then it will print index. So it logged 1 0. So first we have value 1, it printed 1, then its index is 0. So then 2 1, then 3 2. So it's pretty clear what's happening. It's iterating, it's moving through your array, and it's printing, it's getting value and index from it. So the map function is iterating to this array. You got a value and you got an index, and then you can do whatever you want with this value and this index. This is one of the most important function of array map. You'll use it again and again when you move to React. And then there's one another which I like to show, which is filter. Okay, so what filter is? Filter again takes a callback function which gives you a value and a index. Okay, but now what happened is array was just mapping through it, right? It was just iterating through the sorry, the map function was just iterating through the array. Now what filter does is it iterates through, and you give a condition to it that if this condition satisfied, return this value. What I mean by that, if I say let filter array filter ARR is equals to array dot filter and return if value is greater than 1. Now I tell you what's this. So filter looks for the return statement, and in the return statement, if it gets true over here, then it creates first. What it does is create a temporary array. What filter does at the very first thing is create a temporary array. Okay, And then if this return value is true, then it pushes that value into that array. So if I come over here and iterate through it, so array.filter first value come 1, then it goes to return statement, is 1 greater than 1? False. 1 is not greater than 1. So it will return false. Now since it's return false, filter will not add this value to this empty array. Now it goes to 2. It goes to 2, value 2 is 2 greater than 1, condition true. Now since it is true, it will add this over here. And similarly, we comes 3 greater than 1, true. It will append 3 over here. And now this temporary array, now this whole thing later will be replaced by this. And now your filter array will have this newly created array. So after this, if I try to console.log it, I get 2 comma 3. So filter and map are one of the most two important functions of array. And later on, you can go online and try out different functions and anything. If you ever feel any issue, you can Google it. Google it. Try YouTube video. Or look for YouTube videos uh, on the topic on that particular function, or even you can contact me from LinkedIn or anything, and I will I'll be more than happy to help you out to explain what each and every function is and what each and every function do internally. Okay, so this is our so till now we have cleared. We have covered variables, we have covered data type, we have covered type, what is type conversion. Then we talked a little about predefined function and user defined function, and then array and two of the functions of array, that is map and filter. So uh, array is an advanced data type. uh, I told you, right, there are three basic data type: number, string, and boolean. Then we have these are the fundamental data type. Then we have advanced data type. So one of them is array, and then we have another data type which we called object. So object is nothing but it's a collection of data. So, let's say uh, I I myself, Pratyaksh, have different properties. I have a name, I have a age, I have a height, I have a qualification, I have a job, and everything. And I need to store my data in a variable format in a computer. So what I can do? I can say my let name is equals to Pratyaksh. Then I can say let age is equals to 21. Uh, then let profile is equals to SD. So like this, I can go on and go on, and I can define myself over here that what are my properties. But this is very not so recommended way of defining a object or a I'm a object. So it's a very uh, bad way of defining it's of defining an object or storing the object data, because you want to club all these data together. The next day someone else can come and say you can you store my data. Then again I'll create a new variable, let name one, let age two, let profile one, like that. Then third day another person came and say can you store my data, then name three name. So that is very non-scalable way of defining an object. So JavaScript came with a method where I can say let obj, or in our case let person, is equals to open and close curly bracket. Now if now this person is an object, it's an object, and I can store data into it. How can I store data into it? So object is a key value pair. What is key value pair? Key value pair is that it will have a key. In our case the key can be name. it again says deprecated. So, okay. In our case, it can be name, and I can save my name over here. Then another key can be age, and it can have a value 21. So this is a key value pair. Name is a key, and Pratyaksh is a value, and an object contains these key value pairs. Now you can see this person has a definition. This person has a name, which is a type string. Then it has a age, which is a type number. Right. So let's say next day a new person came. Now instead of declaring three new variables, I can just again let's say let person two is equals to let person two is equals to, and I can similarly define name is equals to XYZ, not is equals to column. Name is equals to XYZ and age is equals to 23. Similarly, I can keep on doing that. So now this is an object. Let me know if this much part is unclear, that what is object. Okay. Now moving forward. So this you will later see in this session itself, that how much powerful an object is and how much data it can use, and these objects in themselves can be added into a string. So added into a array. So I can say let array of people is equals to, then I can store person one in it and person two in it. And then later if I any day I want to access any one of these, I can just say array of people and give me the value of person one, person with one in the list, and I can just console.log it, that this is the value of the person who is sitting in the list at the index number one. Wait a minute. Person one is not defined by Mo. Yeah. So it gave me that who is the person has name XYZ and the age 23. So this is object, and we also call it, you can call it JSON, or it's also called JSON, and it is also called object. It's an object, or you can call it a JSON. Okay. Uh, Now moving forward, uh, let's now this has been the basic of JavaScript. Now we are good to add a HTML file to it and start HTML. So this is your boilerplate HTML, in which you have a head and you have a body. Now we also have a tag which is called script tag. Okay. Now this script tag can take a JavaScript file. It can have a JavaScript file which I can give like source equals to, and I can give index dot js. So now my HTML, by writing this, I have linked my HTML file with this JavaScript file. Now I can access, or I can define all the different functions over here, and then I can use those functions inside this HTML file. So before moving forward, uh, our HTML file, whatever you see on a web page, whatever you see on a web page is a document. This whole web page is a document which can be referred as document. Automatically gives document to you. This whole thing is a document. In fact, if I open this and I just do console.log document, it gives you this. You see, it gave you the entire web page, right? So this entire web page is a document. Now this document have different things. Inside body, document has header, document has div, document have n number of items which can be accessed using this document variable. You can access all of this using a document variable, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. Uh, First, just start running this. Let's open this in a server. Open with a live server. Okay, so right now our index doesn't have any. So let's say I say diff and JS with data code. Okay, it's now it's coming over here. Okay. Now, if I want to, now all the tabs inside this body has something called ID. Each and every tag has something called ID, and ID defines a unique identifier. It's a unique way of identifying that particular object in a document. So document contains all these objects. Objects can be your div, your your paragraph tag, your span tag, anything. Okay, so now this ID can be any unique. So let's say it's our root. Let's now I gave a name root to this particular div, and on any day when I want to access this, I now if I want to access this, just me zoom in a little bit. This also. Now, if I want to access this JS with data code, I can just simply write over here document, and in this document I want to get an element by ID, because I know each and every element has a unique ID, and if I want to get a element, I can use that identifier to get that element. So now if I give get element by ID, and what was our ID root, if I give root, it gave me that element. So this is something that jQuery helped with a lot to getting the data and manipulating it, but JavaScript has now come up its own way of getting data from this document, and then we can do different things with it. So if I say document dot get element by ID root, then let's say I thought, okay, I don't want it to be this. I say no, it the HTML inside this should be hello there. So I'm saying that inside this div tag, whatever is there, whatever is inside this div tag, that is inner HTML, replace it with hello there. So now if I run it, it will do that. But since we are in dev tools, it's not doing. I'll show you this over here. So let's define a function. Let's call it on click. On click and old habit, sorry. Yeah, on click, and we say on click what we'll use document. We'll get element by ID, we which has root in it. Okay, so what's difference between ID and class? So ID is a unique way of identifying. So an element can each and every element can have different ID. No two elements can have same ID. If you give same ID to same ID to two different elements, so the element which you have written after that element will have that ID, and you will be unable to access the element which is written above that. So that's a very bad practice of giving same ID to two different elements that way. But you need some common thing to identify that, okay, this is a group of that this is a group, or this is a class of elements, and each and every elements I want each and every element of them each and every of those element using class. So uh, two or more elements can have one or more elements can have same class, and when you get those element by class, you get a complete array. So let's say we give it a root one and we give a class test to it. Okay, and similarly over here we give a class test. Now document.get element by id, we'll just change the name so it's a little easy to understand. Root gives you this, then we named it root 1. Root 1 gave you this, but now instead of element by id, I use document.get element elements by class name. So you see the different element became elements because element is unique, but elements can have multiple. It can have a array of uh, elements. So test, and so now you get a element collection which has two things. That is 0 and another is 1, and you get a so you get the idea, right, that you get the HTML collection which has both 1 and 2. So if you want to access all of those entire collection, you can use get elements by classes. So that is clear. Now moving forward, where were the get element by id root, then dot inner HTML is equals to hello. And so I have defined this on click function, but this on click function needs to be called from somewhere. Now, how can it be called? So these div tags or p tags have different types of events. What is events? Like click is one event. So I can say on click. See, these all are the different events that a function can get, that a element can get. So if I say on click, so this means whenever someone clicks on this, you need to do whatever is given in this. So in our case, we have named it on click function, right? We named it on click. So whenever you run this, somebody click this element, you run this function, and this what this function do? This function replaces the internal HTML with hello. Just so you see that it's taking place, I'll alert uh, test was. So now if I click it, it alerted me that test worked, and it changed the inner HTML into hello. Okay, so this is the beauty and power of JavaScript, that I dynamically, even though uh, I didn't do anything after compiling it. After it has compiled, I haven't touched it, but my web page became dynamic. I can just click it and change the value. The value has changed. So this is why JavaScript is used, and this is why it is so much popular. You can make your pages uh, dynamic very easily. It just took one line to change the text, change the entire text of the web page. Okay, so similarly uh, we can add a event listener also. So let's say I didn't add on click over here, but I want to have on click functionality on this element which has id root. So I can just go and say that document dot get element by id dot add event. Oh, why it's not working? Hello, hello, am I audible? Sorry, network issue. Yeah, so I can just say document dot get element by id. Sorry, get element by ID root, and then in that root you want to add an event listener. So click is the event. So I want to add event. What event listener is that whenever that event happens, you will perform whatever I have told you to. So add event listener whenever a click happens on it. These are all the different events that can happen, and I am saying whenever on this particular element which has ID root click happens, you have to run, you have to perform a function, and that function is you have to perform a function which is on click. Okay, is this clear that is this clear that document dot get element by ID, I have the element now, and dot and on that element I am adding an event listener of click, that whenever the element is click, you will run on click function. Now let's just test it out. Now, if I click it, it changed. Even though I don't have that function written over here anymore, it worked. And you must have noted I removed this parenthesis from here just now. If I keep the parenthesis, it's giving hello over here, and if I just remove it, it's fine. Now, what happened was when I give the parenthesis, I enforce the function call. When my compiler is coming over here, when the program compiled, my compiler was on this line. It saw okay document dot get element by that ID, then add event listener, then on click you have to call this function. You have to call this function, but in I I myself explicitly call this function over here instead of asking my compiler to call it. When I gave this parenthesis, I enforced the function call over here. I didn't ask my compiler to call it. I enforced it myself. So during compilation only this function ran and the value was changed. But if I remove this parenthesis, so now I haven't enforced it, and when my compiler wants, then only this function will be executed, and my compiler will do it only when the click happens. Now it's working fine. Okay. Similarly, let's say we have an input box. Okay, let's have an input, and uh, let's give it a ID inp. Okay, and now I say get element if on input oh, let's say change, you do on change, and let's define on change over here. So now what I have created, I have an input box, and I have said whenever add a event listener to this input which has ID inp, add an event listener change. So what is change? That whenever the value inside that input box change, run this on change function. Okay. So now if I change something, that function should run. See, whenever I blur it, that functions run. So what is the change happening now? I focused the input box. That's a change. I focused out that whenever I focus out, it will run that. So this is something that is issue of just pure JavaScript, that if I just do this, it won't log, but when I blur it, then only it logs that change. But later on, React or whenever whatever library you learn, they have improved it, and now actually on changing the value, it start logging it over here. So instead of logging on change, we can add a button. Let's add a button uh, and name it click, and give it the ID btn. And now instead of adding a listener to input, we add a listener to button, and we say whenever the button is clicked, you run that function. So I type xyz anything, then I do click, then this happens. I can say instead of this, just give me the value, and now it will start giving me the value. Whatever the value is inside this input box. So now let's do one thing. Let's create a web app where we get the data from the from any API call, any JSON placeholder, yeah, this one. Let's call this API. Now you'll see this API is nothing, but it's giving us a JSON object, an array of a JSON object. It's an array and it contains 10 JSON objects, right? It contains 10 JSON objects. Now let's make a real world scenario that we have a API, and we dynamically we want to embed the data of user on that on the screen. So I won't focus on HTML and CSS, how the site look, how it does. I'll just work on the what we say, the functionality, and I hope that will give a lot of idea, or a lot of more understanding of what's happening. And then I guess we can end the session and we can take with the Q&A. Okay, so let's say uh, let's create a button. If from here, if you want, you can code along, and we can work out together. Fetch data. So I'm saying that I have a button which has fetch data, and it has an ID uh, btn, or let's talk with ID. We just say on click call function load. Now we'll define this function load over here. Let's define a function load, and now how do we actually get the data from API? Okay, so there are many different ways of doing it, but I'll go old school, and I'll use one of the most old method of fetching the data. Right now, in modern days, we use something called Axios. There's something called Axios. You can study about it later. We use this to fetch the data. It's a very easy way of fetching the data. You just you give the URL, and it fetches the data without any headache. And similarly, JavaScript also has something called fetch. Uh, oh, I forgot to tell you about this MDN web docs. So this MDN web docs is the holy Bible, or you can say anything of web development. Uh, So whenever you find anything that you are unable to understand or anything, you can just go here and search it. It's the Bible of web developers. So I can any day go and search. Okay, I don't know what is fetch. I don't know what is fetch. I can just go and search, and it will show the result of fetch, what fetch is, what it's used, in-depth details of everything. Okay. And now, but as I told, we are going old school, so we'll use something called XML HTTP request. So, what is this? So we can just say that where HTTP is equals to new XML HTTP request. First, I'll just write it, and then I'll explain that what is what. Okay. Meanwhile, you all can post the questions on whatever the questions you have till now, and I'll answer those later on. Okay, so let's start explaining what is this uh, gibberish over here. So let's start with this very first line. This is we have created HTTP, which is nothing but it contains it's an object of a class called HTTP request. So if you'll see, JavaScript have defined this complex thing called XML, this XML HTTP request, which can be used to call to make an API call from JavaScript without any third party assist or anything. So we can just give var HTTP new XML HTTP request, and now this HTTP can be used to perform different functions defined in this file. So this file contains a lot of different functions, one of which I have used already, state change. So you can see with the help of HTTP now I am using this onReady state change function. So this is a function and we'll come on to this later. Uh, Now what is this HTTP dot open? So whenever you hover over it, you can always see the definition. So what it says the request method, request URL, and synchronous flag. So what I gave was that I want to make an API call. So API call is nothing but you pass a URL and you tell that you go to that URL, you will find the data, just bring that data to me. So in our case, that URL is this user, and we are using a method called get. So get is that we are looking for data on internet, that we are going on internet, or and we are bringing the data in. Then we have something called post. So post is that we have some data, and then we want to put that data. Now post is something little more detailed. Get is easier to understand, that okay, there is some data on internet and you will just get those data, you'll get that data. But in post, then you think about that, okay, what is the data, how do I send it, where it is stored, and all that. And this is where the backend comes into the picture. So I won't touch post, I'll just stick with get in this session, and hopefully next session, whoever comes, or maybe if I am there, then we'll cover all of this when we study about framework like React and everything. When we study not React, actually we study more about backend. We integrate our front end with backend. Okay, so this is now we have created a request, and http dot send means that fire this request, make the API call. Now, what is this on ready state change function? So, when this call is complete, when I have made the call and I have got the data, uh, I need to know that what happened. So, on ready state change is a function which automatically runs whenever you get a response. Whenever you will get a response, this function will automatically kick in and it will run. So we have something called HTTP ready state 4. So ready state uh, is is like what happened. So 4 means that you have got the data. Similarly, we have 1, 2. 2 is that you are currently making the call. 1 be that nothing has been done. You are on stale position. So 4 is the state which we are interested in, which tell us that okay, whatever you are looking for is now here and you can start performing. So when I got the data, I said okay, whatever you got in the response, just pass it into a JSON. So remember, we use parse int. Similarly, we have this parse JSON. So what it will do is you will get data in string form. It will be something like everything will be stringified. I'll just console.log this also so you can see the difference. Then I then I lo then I have logged the data. Now just run it. Okay. Now I say fetch data. So now you see this is the data. Before doing this JSON dot parse, we have data, but it's a complete string. It's a complete string, and you can't really do much of this data. You as a human, you are able to understand it, okay, and see what it is, but the compiler will see it as just a simple string, and it can't do much out of it. So we tell him that okay, the data you are seeing is actually of an object type. It's a string, but it contains object. So just pass it into a JSON object, and then it passed it into a JSON, and now we have our data. So see, we have all of this. What we were seeing online, that ID one, name, username, Brett, and everything. We have all of that over here. So now let's play with this data. So I'll say when let's have a div over here. Let's call it. Let's give it a ID which is root. And now let's go to index.js, and let's say what I do of data is I say okay, you have a data, and see data is nothing but a array. You can see this square bracket, right? So you know it's a array, and here also we can see it's a array. So I told that in array we have one of the most important function called map. So I can just map through the data. I have a object and its index I, and then I can say that this objects need to be added inside this root. So what I'll do, I'll say document dot get element by id, and the name of id was root. Then I say inner html. Now earlier we were doing is equals to, right? Now instead of is equals to, we want to add. We want to add whatever we have in that. So first time a data come, it will replace everything with that data. But now what will happen, the second time something will come, it will override that. Then third time it will override that. So if we just give simple equal to, we'll just able to see whatever is in the last. So instead of is equals to, what we'll say is we'll say just add uh, I hope you know what plus equal to is. If not, then just let me know in the if any one of you doesn't know what plus equal to is, I'll explain it what plus equal to is. Then I'll just say uh, p tag, and we want his name. We want their name to be printed. Now I'll use something more very important. So this is a string I told, right? Backtick can also be used as a string, but backtick comes with a lot of power. You inside a normal string, if I have a string like this, no matter what I type, even if I type my variable name also obj, it will take it. No, it will take it as a normal string. But what backticks give is that now if you give dollar sign and use uh, two curly brackets, now whatever you write inside it is compilable, means it's dynamic. So now I can just say over here that I want object, and since we logged it, we know this object has something called username. So I can just come over and say object has something called username. So now what will happen is it will iterate through entire data. It will iterate and it will append a paragraph again and again with the username of the user. Okay, now let's try it, and boom, we have the data over here. Now we can just to play a little bit. Let's make a function called search. Okay, let's make a function called search. And what this search will take is what we'll do in this search is we'll create an input box over here with id imp and then a button saying search, which on click will call search function. Now what we'll do in this search function is that we'll get whatever I have written in this search over here. I'll just pass the username or pass the name, and then I removed the log just a minute. So see, what we'll do is we'll try to search on the basis of, let's say, email number. We'll input the email over here, and we'll try to search the person with that email and print his name and phone number inside instead of this. So let's start document dot get element by id, and we named it inp dot value. So this is the keyword. So we have the keyword now. We have the keyword which we want to search. Now remember I told about filter, right? That filter lets you find any data, returns the array by filtering it out. But one can use filter, but JavaScript also gives us a function that is called find. So what it does is filter returns array, right? Filter returns an array uh, of the element whichever passes the condition, but and it goes till the from 0 to n minus 1. But what find does is find looks for one element. It looks for just one element that passes that condition. So in our case we'll use find because we know that email is unique, and instead of getting a array of result, we'll just get one result. So why to take a array which has one object and then get the object out of that array, single element array? We just directly get the element itself. So that's why we'll use find now. So we can say that we need to use this data. Okay, so instead of defining data over there, I'll define data over here, which is a array, and do this. Now, since this data is outside this function and this function, so it's a global data. It's a global variable. It can be used both in this function also and inside this function also. So and so now I'll say that data dot find, and again it will give me a value. It will give me an index. It will give me. I'll take object and I'll take I, and I'll say whosoever objects email is equal to our keyword is true, return that, and we'll take that data over here. Let result equals to this, and let's just log it then. Let's just first see if everything is going as we want. Let's try to find. Let's try to see if it's able to give us a result on this. Okay, get element by ID in INP is not defined. Oh, we named it IMP. My bad. So now we can see that it logged the value, right? Now we have the person with that particular email over here. So we can make it case sensitive, as we don't know that user will use capital or small letter or capital letter case or lower case. So we can just give it to lower, and similarly over here or to lower. Hello. Oh, shit. Yeah. So to lower case, to lower case. Okay. So now if I say fetch data and I the value, and instead of h I use smaller case also, it will find it. But if I remove this case condition and make it case sensitive, then if I do this and I make it capital R, it won't find it. It gave undefined because it was unable to find it. So let's make it case sense. Now what we want is that if I'm able to search the data, I show the username over here, or else I say that user is not defined. So I'll use conditional statement. I'll say if res. Okay. So like we have true and false, right? Uh, if we have something undefined, if our result is undefined, according the condition will be considered false. So uh, if I get undefined, this block of statement will not work. And as we saw that if the search doesn't match, we get a undefined. So and we'll then we can catch it over here. We can say if the result is not there, you can just go to else block. Now over here we have document dot get element by ID, and we have root, right? Then we can say inside that root, change that inner HTML to whatever result you have, its username. And if you doesn't find anything, just replace it with not found. Now let's try it. We fetch the data, we got the data. We enter the username, uh, we enter the email, let's say whatever gibberish, it says not found. But now if I try to enter a valid email, I'll just pick any email and I just run this. It went and said that this email, the username is Samantha. So that's it. I hope you all got the gist of JavaScript and of how much powerful it can be. And I know this is very beginning, this is very beginner stuff, but this is what you everyone needs base to build upon. So I hope with this you got fundamentals of JavaScript, and now you can go over internet and you can visit datacode.in and use their resources, and you can explore. You can explore different event listener. You can explore different functions, what different stuff you can do. And I very much recommend that instead of just reading document or watching video, you do something of your own. Take a small project. Let's say now instead of getting the API call for user, you can try to look for an API which gives you weather, which gives you weather data. Then use that to make a weather API. Or you can use this JSON placeholder itself, and it has to dos. You can make a to do list. You can make a to do list, and you can try using that. So go and explore more and more. Okay, then I'll just stop sharing now, and we can now start with Q&A session. Yes, Arupural, you can contact me anytime. I'll just drop my LinkedIn profile, and you can visit datacode.in. They have tagged me, but I'll also drop my profile over here, and you can anytime contact me on LinkedIn.
So it was a great session, Pratyaksh, and I would really like to thank you. That's for this. It was a great and amazing sessions, like starting with JavaScript, beginning with JavaScript, and yes, and thanks to all participants who want to learn JavaScript from beginners, and yeah, it was a great experience, and with Pratyaksh, and I also learned new things. Some I brush up my own JavaScript concepts also. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you so much Pratyaksh for conducting this awesome session. And yes, anyone can connect with Pratyaksh, and it's also available on our WhatsApp group and Discord channel, Discord server. Like always, Pratyaksh is always available for guiding you through clearing your doubts and all things. So yeah. And now I'm going to share one link with you. Like it would be the link for certificate. So I will share my screen. I will present one link with you. So share. I guess. So yeah, here it's the link, and yes, you can register yourself on this link. It will be open only for 5 to 10 minutes for the attendance. Like we are taking attendance, it's online attendance system. So yeah, and also we will organize more such events, and if you are already connected with and already joined Datacode community, you know that it's a beginners learning community, and we just a second. And we used to organize events and series of events. Like this time we are coming up with web development sessions, and it is our third event for JavaScript. And yes, keep feedbacking us. Like if you need more JavaScript, like one more JavaScript session, like advanced JavaScript, so we can also plan this session. And also, if you want to move forward to the web development journey, like any kind of framework, so just please let us know which framework or library you want to learn about. Like how can we start with any kind of library framework? Yeah. Yes, that's all with us, and keep feedbacking us, and yeah, join Datacode communities. So thank you, Pratyaksh, for joining us today, and it was really great session on JavaScript. Like lots of beginners will telling us that they must needed this type of session on JavaScript, because every time we learn new things, they try to learn JavaScript, but they don't get the exact flow where they have to start with them. But it's great that today they learn the actual flow, where to start from, and how can they achieve JavaScript. So thank you so much, and thank you so much everyone, like for joining this session, and we will organize more such session. Stay tuned with us. Thank you everyone.
Thank you for having me. Thank you guys.